Here he is, Jim Owczarski, Bucks beat reporter for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Jim, let's talk about Gary Trent Jr. He is a pretty nice signing for the Milwaukee Bucks when they got him pretty late in the free agency signing period. And it feels like he's not just a guy that they added on a veteran minimum, although that is the situation. It feels like they added him as a guy who could be a significant rotation piece, much like Malik Beasley last year. Tell me what you like about this and where Gary Trent fits for the Bucks.
Yeah, I do like it, JR, and it fills a need in the starting lineup next to Damian Lillard. It fills a need of sort of that youthful athleticism. He's just 25, 26 years old. Reminds me a lot, actually, JR, of the Bobby Portis signing back in 20, where you got a guy who's in his mid-20s hitting his prime, getting him on a manageable deal. Obviously, the finances were different back then. And yeah, like Beasley, what's interesting, look, credit to Malik, had a career year, but he was sort of like shoehorned into a team like after the Dame trade, right? Like it was like Beasley was going to come off the bench, and then the coaches changed. Like this is Gary Trent Jr. is being signed to start alongside Damian Lillard, and there's some defensive potential there. You know, I realize people in Portland and maybe some national folks will or I should say people in Toronto may say, well, Gary Trent Jr. is not this sort of stalwart on defense. And that, look, that's what DeLon Wright, I think, is kind of here for. JR, Gary Trent is here to make a lot of threes and also help this team get buckets when Dame is off, when Chris is off, when Giannis is off the court, when, you know, if there's injuries or whatever it may be. Like he's a guy who can create his own and score on his own. And so it checks so many boxes, JR. And as far as the contract, yeah, it is what it is. Gary, we'll have to hear from him on how he thought this market played out or didn't for him. But it's a win for the Bucks. And look, if he does what most guys do when they come to Milwaukee and play with Giannis, which is career best 3-point shooting, it might very well pay off for Gary Trent Jr. down the line.
Yeah, it dovetails into you talking about how he's brought in specifically for the team that's already there. We talked a lot about how this offseason is such an advantage for them because there isn't going to be a surprise top 75 edition late in, before they break, they start practices, preseason practices. They know who the personnel are. They know who their coach is, and Doc Rivers. Are you getting any sense of how that's come together? I know it's pretty early yet, so maybe they haven't even gotten into that part of the preseason yet, but are you getting a feeling like there are signs that this Bucks team is going to be much less chaotic than what we ended up seeing in 2023-24?
Yeah, JR, just talking to a few folks in the team, there's inherent excitement because they feel like they just never came together last year, particularly the Giannis Dame thing, right? Like it just did, It never, for very reasons we've already covered in previous point 4 or 5s, it never came together. And the fact that Doc Rivers gets a full off season, roster 1 through 15 is set. You know who's who and where they're going. And if there are questions about back end rotation stuff, meaning players 8 to 10, I mean, that's something that can be hashed out. Doc's got all of his coaches that he wants. Chris Middleton had a couple surgeries. So we'll see how that affects, they tend to slow play Chris coming out of these things. Yeah. But Dame's healthy. Giannis got out of it, as far as we know, got out of the Olympics healthy 7 weeks before camp. JR, there is a real sense of, okay, this is like a normal offseason, a normal start to the season. And that's a big deal, especially when you look at continuity and how that only helps teams, JR. So there is some excitement for sure heading into this training camp at the end of early October.
We'll talk about the Olympics in a second, but the dust has kind of settled now around the free agency, players moving, veteran minimums have been handed out at this point. As you look at the Eastern Conference, where do you see the Milwaukee Bucks? Do you still view them as a team that's really, near or at the top?
Yeah, I do, JR. And it's, look, we're all victims of the very, very short news cycle. Things are exciting. Movement's exciting, right? The Knicks, are playing NBA college 2K25 with Villanova, right? Paul George goes to the 76ers in the biggest free agent move of the summer. Obviously, the Celtics, defending champions, with such a great season. And so it's easy to sort of forget the Bucks. And look, they've earned some of that, JR. I mean, they've won one playoff series since the title, right? Giannis has been hurt. So that, and they're aging, but they're not old. They're not done. And I think it's really interesting, JR, to think of a team with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard sort of being an underdog, a team that people are like, maybe fourth in the East, fifth in the East, which I get the big East Coast market stuff. I mean, the Bucks are still right at the top, JR. I mean, again, it always comes down to who's healthy in the playoffs, but I think they may course correct some of this discourse very early in the season. And then it'll be right back to, hey, can the Bucks win this thing? And that type of discussion. But yeah, JR, I do. I think it's a solid roster from 1 to 9, 1 to 10. And really that's all that matters. And then we'll see how the other guys kind of work in as they get through the 82 games.
I imagine Bucks fans are pretty happy with Greece's plight in the in the Olympics. They get out of pool play. They get a chance to play in the quarterfinals and then lose to Germany. So Giannis is heading home. I think everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. Seemingly healthy. He looked very good, averaged more than 28 points per game over those 4 contests. They did beat Australia, very good team that also fell in the quarterfinals. But any takeaways from watching Giannis play in Paris at the 2024 Olympics?
Yeah. Again, yeah, you're right, JR. Look really, really strong and like literally in a style of basketball that I believe is more physical than the NBA. For as much as Giannis gets beat up in NBA games, I think FIBA is such a different thing. And look, in the NBA, you have to account for these other guys. And look, Giannis, there was a whole Australian meme, right, JR, where it was Giannis versus Australia, and then the Greek team kind of made fun of that meme, but that's how it was viewed. And even his Greek coach said, like, he got beat up so much comparatively, right? So the fact that he looked as good as he did, the fact that he only played 33 minutes a game, now that's a lot, but 40 minutes in international basketball, but it wasn't like they had him out there at 38, 39, which I'm sure his group, the Bucks, maybe they talked about that. So that was good. Yeah, he looked great. 7 weeks now from the end of this to the start of camp, JR. I fully expect him to begin the season like gangbusters. He's only ever really done that coming off of Greek play, let alone the first Olympic Games, getting his team to a chance at a medal. Historic flag bearer. Is the first Black Greek to open the games and hold the flag. I mean, there'll be a letdown, right, of that adrenaline, but there's so much there, JR, positive for a guy who tries to stay in that space, right? And to now go forward to a Bucks season, as we just said, everyone's really excited about. I think Bucks fans, Giannis fans, should be totally thrilled with the way this played out this summer.
He is Jim Owczarski, Bucks beat reporter for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Read everything he has at jsonline.com. Things are going to ramp up sooner than you know. Thank you, Jim, for joining us. Talk to you again soon.